Let's take a look at the shape of different graphs. There are graphs that are symmetrical and there are graphs that are skewed, and those are the ones that we're going to analyze today. So a symmetrical graph is that when you cut it down the middle, both sides look the same. And if you see in this normal curve here, and we'll talk about what normal means in a second, if you draw a line right through the middle, both sides look the same. So we're used to thinking of like the line of symmetry in a parabola, same idea. A normal curve is a symmetrical shape with a single peak in the middle, and in fact it always forms this exact shape. Sometimes it's called a bell curve. It describes a lot of things in nature where most things tend to be towards the middle. There's a few on the high end and a few on the low end, but most things fall in the middle. That's a normal curve. And then skew. Skewed shape is when you have something that's not symmetrical, where more of the data is off to one side or more of it's off to the other. If you look at these two graphs here, these are both skewed. Now, if you get confused with these like I always have, you'll need to make sure you remember that the label for skew is with the tail, not the bulk of the data, the tail. So this is skewed to the right because the little right side has a tail. This one here is skewed to the left because the tail is on the left. It doesn't matter where most of the data is. Don't worry about that. Worry about where the tail is. So skewed right means it's got a tail this way, skewed left, tail this way. Next thing is we have this histogram. We want to know if it's skewed left or right or if it's roughly normal. So someone had made a frequency chart for this, and we see that it forms this pattern. Someone then turned that into a histogram with 5 bars. And if I look at it and I split it down the middle, it is not perfectly symmetrical. This height and this height are not exactly the same. But when you're dealing with real data, very, very, very rarely will you get things to end up exactly symmetrical, where they follow such a good pattern that they always work out exactly the way you want them to. So with real data, this is considered incredibly symmetrical. This would definitely be considered a roughly normal shape, and you can imagine tracing on that roughly normal curve right over the top of it. So when you see something like this, you would say that it is not skewed. You would say that it is roughly normal or roughly symmetrical.